Back with us again is nuclear energy expert Cham Dallas. Good to have you back with us. You're coming to us from the University of Georgia, we should point out. As we just heard from John, these two nuclear reactors in California, which are on the San Andreas Fault, a lot of people focus on that, but the East Coast isn't immune to any sort of natural disaster. So if there were any of these natural disasters, could we see a failure like what we've seen in Japan, and can we deal with it?
Well, in the American nuclear power industry, we have a pretty strong culture for emergency preparedness. They drill all the time. You know, as I said earlier, I worked in Chernobyl in Eastern Europe. They don't have a culture, and that's why they had such a bad disaster there years ago. Now, I have to say, the Japanese experience has surprised me some. I thought they were better prepared than as it turns out, than they were.
Where did it surprise you? Where do you think things fell short?
Well, that they couldn't keep the emergency backup systems going, to keep water cooling the reactors. That one surprised me a little bit.
There has been an assurance from the Nuclear Regulatory Committee here in the U.S. that these nuclear reactors can deal with any sort of natural disaster. Do you believe that? Anything?
I would agree with that. I'm fairly familiar with the nuclear power industry here, and you know, we have a lot of checks and balances here. A lot of people in the nuclear power industry will tell you that they're over-regulated, but when it comes to safety, that's a good thing.
So then what makes them better prepared than, say, what we saw in Japan? Backups didn't work. How do we know ours will not fail?
Well, we have a lot of exercises here. They exercise these crews all the time, and we have a culture of preparedness here. The people, it's the best description I can have. It's their background. It's the way they think, the way they operate, and they drill all the time.
Because there's been some concern in the past that a lot of times the reaction, it's more reactionary, I should say, not necessarily preparedness, but you would dispute that.
Yeah, I would say there is some reaction there. We haven't had a new nuclear reactor here in the United States in a long time because of 3 Mile Island. And so there was a reaction to that. But however, that kind of reaction also makes us prepare more.
When you mentioned that we haven't had a new one, how much of a factor is age, that the existing plants here are 30, 40 years old?
Well, it is an interesting fact that the reactors that were older, the Japanese have been bringing on new reactors all the time. They have new reactors, middle-aged, and older ones. It just so happens it looks like the older ones are the ones where the problems are. And since their older reactors are the average age of our reactors, that is something to think about. I think one result will be that there will be a review here in the United States. I think one result of all this.
Well, and it seems we're already seeing people call for that, lawmakers calling for that. Senator Lieberman, one of the ones who came out in the front, and said, look, we don't have to necessarily stop everything, but we have to put the brakes on. You mentioned what happened after 3 Mile Island. What do you see happening in the immediate future here in the U.S. when it comes to nuclear power?
Well, there was a recent surge of activity and interest in more nuclear power reactors in this country. We have an energy problem. The
president pushed forward in his State of the Union address, bringing it up there as well.
That's right, and appropriately, because the oil's not going to last forever. We're putting coal and putting gases in the atmosphere. We have to have some way of generating electricity, and nuclear power looked like it was going to make a comeback. Now there'll probably be some checks on that.
Just real quickly and simply for us, for anybody at home looking at this, would you tell them that nuclear power is safe?
In the United States, I would say that it is safe. We've learned a lot from the past. Appropriate regulatory activity, and the nuclear power industry has responded well here in the United States.
Professor Dallas, thanks for your time this morning.
Okay.
Chris, over to you.
Erica, thank you. Japan's hospitals are facing